Before we introduce our speakers, I want to acknowledge the Quapaw Nation. They have generously underwritten this year's Preservation Conversation series. We'd also like to thank our corporate and individual members. We would not be able to carry out our mission without their support. You can find a list of our corporate members on our website at quapaw.com. I'm sorry, y'all, I'm still getting a lot of echo. Are you getting that too? So tonight's preservation conversation, before I introduce our speakers, I want to let you know that they would like to take the questions while they're giving their talk. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat area and or the comment area in YouTube. So sorry, y'all, I'm still getting feedback. Are you getting feedback, Shelley? Not at all. What about you, Brent or Nathan? Are you getting double? Okay. All right. Brent Staley has more than 20 years of electrical contracting experience for Staley Incorporated and Staley Electric. He specializes in building team strategies to account manage and project manage the client service and or construction activities. Brent is a third generation and co-owner of Staley Electric, which is a full service electrical contractor in the state of Arkansas. He holds master electrical licensing in Arkansas, Alabama, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Chicago, and Philadelphia, and his specialties are retail technology deployment, project management, account management, career development, and electrical contracting. Brent is married to Natalie Staley, and they have two sons, Luke, 14, and Levi, 11. Previous board of directors roles outside of his electrical career: Arkansas, from 2000 to 2009, he was with Arkansas Hunters Feeding the Hungry. 2000 to 2010, Sigma Chi Alumni Association and Omega Omega Housing Corporation. 2009 and 2000 to 2020, Search Ministries, Arkansas area. 2015 to 2018, Wolf Street Foundation. 2000 to 2018, Staley Incorporated. And he's currently serving on the following board of directors: 2015 to current, East Initiatives. 2018 to current, Staley Holdings Incorporated. 2020 to current, Explore Ministries. So thank you very much, Nathan, for joining us tonight. Nathan Welch is the general manager in the Staley Service Department, a role he has held since 2016. Nathan has been an electrician since 2000, and prior to coming to Staley, he was the chief of operations for another electric company out of Benton. This is his 21st year as an electrician and now facilitates design and repair of electrical systems for buildings. He's been married for 13 years and has two children, ages 8 and 5. This is interesting. Outside of electrical, he is a self-proclaimed fireworks nut. In his spare time, he enjoys making fireworks and designing displays. He also likes to recondition old light fixtures. So I thought when we heard that, we'll have to get Nathan's contact information, because we have often members of the QQA who need help with retrofitting antique light fixtures. So please join me in welcoming Nathan and Brent. I'm going to switch the show over to them.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
I was saying, Shelley, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. over a year ago, and all the reminders along the way. And Patricia, thank you for the tutelage on and what the expectations were for tonight. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you guys. So we're happy to be here, and we're happy to talk to people that are investing in our community, and obviously in the beautification of the Little Rock area, but more specifically the Quapaw district. And so you know, we want to be available to you guys to answer any electrical questions that you might have about your homes, because they are unique and they are beautiful, and we want to keep them that way. And we want to help you in any electrical issues that you might have. So to get started, I'm going to share my screen, and we've got a brief presentation for you. I've asked Shelly and Patricia just to let us know what questions you have. You feel free to interrupt us on any particular topic that we may be on. So let me open this up. Okay. So we're going to start out with a brief intro of our company today. We're going to discuss an issue that has probably affected each and every one of you to some degree or another, and knob and tube wiring. We'll be available to answer any questions that you have there. We're going to discuss electrical panel renovations and remediation, and when is it appropriate to do so. Any questions that you have on generators will be available to answer, and we'll tell you a little bit about generators in a historic district. Another issue that we feel is pretty prominent in the historic district of Little Rock is the two-prong versus three-prong outlets, and how to remediate that, and what you need to know about those outlets, and what you may not know. And then lastly, we will just briefly describe to you what we feel like would be some good advice when you're hiring an electrician or you're hiring a contractor, the things that we spend a great deal of time explaining to our customers in your area, and just making sure that you guys all understand what is important to know about the contractors that you're hiring to work in your home. Staley Electric was founded in Little Rock in 1951 by my grandfather, Royce Staley. He, after World War II, he went to work for the AMC bicycle manufacturing plant on 65th Street in Little Rock. And shortly thereafter, he decided he did not like working for other people, and wanted to start his own business. And he had some electrical training in the U.S. Navy. And so he applied that training to his business, and we became an electrical contractor in 1951. Over those years, we've had, we currently have an electrical contracting division where we work for general contractors and large end users and hospitals around the state. That division currently has 55 employees. And the division that Nathan represents, our electrical service division, we currently have 20 employees, and that is the division that does home repair, small projects and businesses, and pretty much anything that doesn't look like a construction project goes through Nathan's department. Over the years, we've had a technology deployment business, which we sold 2 years ago. We worked in all 50 states, Canada, and Puerto Rico. And about 20 years ago, we had a fire and burglar alarm system. So basically anything with wires, we've been involved with for the last 70 years. Anything that involves either low voltage or medium voltage electricity. So we're going to start our presentation today with knob and tube wiring, something that each and every one of you are either own or are familiar with. And I'm going to turn it over to Nathan, and let him do some explanation on what to look for, how you know you have it, and what some of the issues might be in your home.
Thank you, guys. What we're looking at here is, this is actually a very clean representation of knob and tube wiring. This is actually what you would see if the ceiling and walls were stripped away, and you can see the porcelain knobs, and you can see the tubes coming down through the top plates and so forth. Those were the insulators for that older cloth wiring. This is really a remarkable shape. It's a great representation of it. So when we talk about knob and tube, it's actually you're looking at what it is called knob and tube, and the wires being supported by those porcelain knob and tube. Most of the houses that are at least 60 years or older more likely has this wiring in their home. What we see most times is if you see a fuse panel, there is a very, very almost 100% risk, or you have knob and tube wiring. This is a very nice example of a fuse panel. I wish we got to work on them this nice all the time. But if you see this, which you know in the Quapaw district, that is what you're going to. A lot of these homes have this fuse type screw-in panels, and even some have the plug-in fuses. When you look at this and you want to remedy it, a lot of people go quick to put in a new breaker box, but that doesn't truly remedy the knob and tube. The NEC does not require that you have to take the knob and tube out as long as it's in good working condition, but you can't really make any modifications to it due to if you're going to use knob and tube, you have to continue using it. Well, those practices are now gone, and it's hard to get any insurance company to sign off on it if you do make modifications to it. So it's kind of a dead art, I would say. Any piece of knob and tube that you see should not be around any insulation whatsoever. So, you know, if you see where someone's went back and insulated or put any type of blown in, especially in attics, blown in insulation in knob and tube, that is a hazard. A lot of times when we do get brought in when someone's updating an older home and they are wanting to insulate it because there is no insulation, this is where you run into that issue, and it becomes a battle with the insurance company for sure. Looking at the screen here, your knob and tube is definitely not ready for, cannot take any moisture. It is typically 7 to 100 years old. There are no groundings in that system whatsoever. A lot of times, especially in the Quapaw district, we'll go back and add grounds, especially when people are trying to add internets. You know, any modern device requires a ground now. And a lot of times we go in and install just a dedicated ground for that, or a dedicated circuit that is grounded just for the newer technology. A lot of times, especially the neutral was the fused or overcurrent protected wire, which causes a reverse polarity. So you're actually protecting the grounded wire of the system, which is not the provision that you would want to protect your equipment. So if you look here where it says the insulation was designed to dissipate heat in a free air and therefore breaks down with age, that's where a lot of the issue comes with getting insulation close or around or anything that is a tinder. Because when it breaks down, it is a lot of cases just a bump or movement can knock the insulation off of it, and then therefore it becomes a risk. A lot of knob and tube wiring was a copper clad, which it wasn't 100% copper. It was either a mixture of copper and aluminum or another type of metal, and it does have a life expectancy and it does break down. A lot of times it's good to, if you haven't had that type of work assessed by a licensed contractor that has worked with the older knob and tube wiring, it is a smart choice to have it taken care of for sure. Go ahead and switch for me there. There we go. Many times the circuits that you see that trip and the homeowner installs a fuse that's larger than it is rated. You know, the old phrase, put a penny behind it. It's true. I've seen it. People do it quite often. They'll put a penny, you know, the newer pennies won't work, but an older penny you would find behind a fuse, and but what it done is it gave you a false sense of protection. A lot of times when we go into a home, that wire is actually rated for 15 amps, and we come in contact with about 85% of the time it has a 30 amp fuse in it. And this is due to the homeowner was tired of that fuse blowing, so they put a larger fuse and it held. that is a hazard in itself, because now that circuit can have more amperage put across it than it should. A lot of times in older homes, we come into it to where we see a space heater, and that is a danger due to the fact that they pull so much current across the wires that it does make it become a fire hazard. The ceramic that you see that we're talking about in the first picture, where you see that it is an insulator between the wood, it does break down because no home is absolutely steel, or it vibrates or what have you, whatever reason. The ceramic, especially then, it's not as I guess you'd say modern as now. It breaks down, and a lot of cases that's where we see the issue is where it broke down at a bend going through like a top plate or a bottom plate of a wall, and is now just resting on wood, and that becomes a fire hazard in itself. We talk about splices made by the homeowner or unlicensed person. A lot of times when we see people selling homes in historic areas, that is a remedy that we come in and fix quite often. So what we do is we try to restore. If we're not going to remove the knob and tube, we try to restore that small section if possible. Sometimes it's rare that it is able to be repaired properly, but we have to remove the wrong splices and junctions tied onto it and go back to the service or the panel if it is in working order to add another circuit to it and remove those type of bad splices. Sorry guys, let me move my screen. So a lot of times when you see a contractor go into a home, and we're here at Staley, we run into this quite a bit, is when the contractor, you have someone come in, they'll replace the what you would call visible knob and tube wiring. So in the first picture, when we were talking about, when I was bragging on how nice a representation of knob and tube is, that is actually behind a wall. Most of the time, you're not removing that wall. So therefore, a lot of contractors just tie onto that wire, what you see at the very top of the screen, and leave that inside the wall. Therefore, yes, you've removed the knob and tube from the attic, but you haven't removed it from your wall. So those insulators we're talking about that deteriorate, that's going down your wall, are still there and still functioning and carrying voltage across it. So that's where you want to, when someone says removing knob and tube, it is an extensive job to remove that knob and tube. If you can go one more. So speaking about that, where we're talking about, it's really hard to remove that knob and tube wiring. That's where it comes into the insurance companies requiring the removal of that knob and tube. It is very hard to get a insurance company to sign off on knob and tube if they know it's existing or if it has been modified, especially. That's where we come into a lot, is when someone's trying to sell or remodel a home. The insurance company, when they find that exposed knob and tube, they are wanting it removed. I know through some of your benefactors, y'all have found a few insurance companies that will, but it is a chore for sure. Oh, you're all right. So when you're looking at trying to remedy the knob and tube issue, it is a benefactor to make sure that you're dealing with a reputable licensed electrical company that has dealt with that before, because there's many facets of how the removal and replacement of that wire can come into play, especially with local codes and your insurance company, which plays a big factor of that. Yeah, you can take it from there. That mouse is super sensitive.
So this is when we come into a situation where we're going to remediate a portion of the knob and tube or the whole home, we do a full assessment of your home. Our customers, we give them every single circuit that needs to be remedied and what our plan is to remedy it. We're going to determine the safety of the existing system. We're going to find those splices that are incorrect that Nathan was talking about, and that'll be in our scope of work. We'll draw up an entire scope of work, and we will identify lath and plaster walls, sheetrock walls that need to be removed in order to do the remediation. Again, the National Electrical Code does not require knob and tube to be remediated. It requires it to be safe. And in order for it to be safe, a licensed electrician in that jurisdiction has to deem it safe. And so our job is to make sure the home is the absolute safest environment imaginable. And if we can't remove lath and plaster, we have to work with the homeowner to say, okay, you're going to end up with knob and tube wiring in these walls because we're not removing the exterior of the wall. And we walk through each and every piece, every room, every circuit to make sure that the customer understands what we're getting into. Again, with remediation, we do not know what is behind a closed wall. We do know that there's no insulation allowed to touch the wiring, but we don't know which walls have insulation in them and which ones don't. Fortunately for you guys, in the Quapaw district, most internal walls do not have insulation in them. And then we establish a budget and we say, okay, this is a budget number for you to do this remediation. And it's just so you guys know, as you're going through any type of remediation project, these are the things that you should expect from your contractor so that you have a comfort that the money that you're investing in your home, you're getting an insurable product, you're getting a safe product, and that you're getting a return on your investment that you're going to in the future sell to somebody else. Let's see what's next. Shelly, Patricia, do we have any questions on knob and tube?
I don't think we do at this point. I thought we had chat on this, but we evidently don't. So I'm just waiting for people to open up for questions and answers. They can go into the Q&A section. So I haven't seen any on my end. Shelly, do you have any on the YouTube?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we're going to go into panel replacements. Again, if you have questions on knob and tube wiring, any type of technical question, we're available to answer whatever it is that you have. On your electrical panels in your home, we recommend that they are replaced every 20 to 30 years. Now, in our business, what we know is our customers do not remember when their electrical panel was installed, and they do not have this on their calendar to replace their electrical panel every 20 to 30 years. So we want to give you some ideas of what to look for to make sure that your home is in a safe working order. The reasons that you need to change your electrical panel. There are times when panel manufacturers go out of business. They produce a substandard product, and through litigation, they file bankruptcy, and there are no more parts and pieces available to service that panel. So we have several panel manufacturers that were made in the 50s and the 60s that are no longer in business, and most times, again, like knob and tube, they're uninsurable electrical panels. If moisture has entered your panel and produced corrosion, you have deteriorated the lifespan of that panel a great deal. And we'll show you some pictures in a second. If you have breakers that continuously fail, and then they cause damage to your bus bar, which is a piece of the electrical panel equipment, those are instances where the panel needs to be changed out.
Hey, Brent.
Yes.
We do actually have a question now. I'm sorry.
No problem. What is
The
it?
question is, we have a few live wires in our attic. Is it possible to just turn those off at the circuit breaker?
Yes, it is. It's certainly possible. Now, when you turn a circuit off, the unintended consequence is you're turning something else off as well. Very seldom do we have one device on one circuit. So when we do turn those live wires off, there will be somewhat of an unintended consequence that you'll lose some power somewhere else in the home. But that is a very easy remediation of knob and tube wiring.
Great, thank you.
You bet. And then, of course,
I'm going to ask a question too, since we're on this. Do panels need to be indoors or can they be outdoors? Ours at our house is a 1958, and all of our electrical panels are on the exterior of the building. Is that an issue?
no, it's not. We have two types of panels. We have our outdoor rated panels are qualified NEMA 3R, which means that they're rated for outdoor use and they're weatherproof. The indoor panels are, what is the NEMA rating on an indoor panel? What is it?
That'd be NEMA 1.
1. Okay, so a NEMA 1 panel is rated only for indoor use. And so we have panels for either situation. So no, they do not need to be inside the home, but they do have to have the right rating. And then the other thing for a panel change out is the technology changes. I mean, we have a massive amount of new technology from surge protection, from arc fault circuit interrupters, ground fault circuit interrupters that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. And so they provide more protection for your home. And so sometimes we upgrade panels for the customer's safety if it's necessary. So I've got a few examples here, just so you can take a look at your house whenever you get home.
Brent, I'm gonna jump in with another knob and tube question that someone sent to me via text.
Sure.
They said, watching on YouTube, is it practical to consider just removing any and all knob and tube wiring given insurance, safety, and resale? I guess practical means also economically feasible, but you can chat on that.
I can chat on that. When we say economically feasible, I'm going to say in a smaller home, you can easily spend $10,000. When you get up to a larger scale home, when you start surpassing 2,000 square feet, you're probably getting closer to the $15,000 to $20,000. You get closer to the 4,000 square foot, you're going to spend somewhere around 30,000 plus. It is possible. We've done a few of the larger homes last year, and that's about where they came. They were past the 30,000 mark. And it all depends on, and that's just electrical. You've also got to think, you've got other contractors you've got to bring into this. Someone's going to restore depending on what kind. Is it lap, or is it you have drywall or stucco, depending, I mean, just what kind of wall covering you got, and do you restore it back to historically, or what measures you use. So it has a pretty good big large size budget when it comes to this repair.
Yeah, so it's certainly a significant investment to rewire a home, and I'm not sure if we're, I mean, economically feasible is really for resale value. What we see in the industry is these pictures right here and the knob and tube pictures are the #1, barring a roof leak. These are the #1 negotiation tactics from realtors and from buyers to lessen the price of a home. If knob and tubes in existence, if old electrical panels are in existence, these are things that get used to negotiate. So again, we can't answer financial questions per house because we just don't know. But I would say that if you are investing in an older home that has knob and tube, you have to go into that transaction knowing that there's going to be money spent on the back end for remediation. And then, and again, it can be done very carefully. It can be done in phases, right? So the numbers that Nathan said were whole home rewires, but you can do it in phases as you move into the house. And we have a lot of clients that have said, okay, I've got to get rid of this, but I can't afford to get rid of it all at once. And I'd like to do this portion of the house first, and then this portion and this portion. And so I don't know if we answered the question very well there. That's a tough one.
Well, and I can also say there's, like what Brent just tapped on, a lot of times when we try to set a goal or a budget to do room by room or section by section. It's something, it's not a scary thing to ask us. We're able to come out and make that assessment and help guide through that very easily. It's not like it's not pulling teeth, per se.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to know from a contractor. Nathan and I've worked in a lot of the Quapaw homes, the historic homes, and we even work on the governor's mansion. And the issue is everything that we do in that district takes 2 to 3 times longer than work we do in any other part of the town because of the framing and the structures of the building. You know, if we make a mistake in a historic home, it costs fourfold to repair and remediate what a mistake that we would make in a home in West Little Rock. And so we have to take our time. We want our homeowners to be extremely educated and make sure they understand what they're getting into. But it is a different environment. And when you make these investments on these homes, you have to understand that a good contractor, to get it done right, is going to take his time, and he's going to take as good a care of your home as he possibly can.
Yeah, we do have one more question as a follow-up about the knob and tube. For clarification, we had an electrician in and he turned off the knob and tube. Is it still a danger, and does it all need to be removed?
I wouldn't say if they've removed the source of power to the knob and tube, if you have no plans of ever re-energizing it, I would say just make sure that you have your contractor remove the source of power permanently to where it can't be energized, and that would deviate all dangers from it.
Yeah. So our National Electrical Code requires us to remove abandoned cables. There's just instances where that's physically impossible. And to Nathan's point, if the wiring is cut off so much that it can never be re-energized again, then that's a safe environment. The wiring cannot be disconnected from, let's just use this picture for example. If I disconnect the wire from this breaker right here, but I leave the wire in the box and I leave it cooled up down here, it still can be energized. And that's what Nathan's saying. That wire has to be removed so far back away from this panel that it can never be connected to that panel ever again. It basically out of sight, out of mind. And so the answer is yes. If they disconnected it, ideally, if they can visibly see it in a crawl space or in an attic, for your safety and for your peace of mind, it needs to be removed, even though it's abandoned, because it will cause issues for the next home inspection. When you get ready to sell your house, the inspector may say, well, you have knob and tube wiring, but yet you remediated it many years ago. And so ideally we remove it. There are instances where we can't get to it and we can't actually physically get it out of the home. And so again, we try to cut it back as far as we possibly can to where it's never going to be an issue again. Any more?
I think we're good for now. Yeah, we have one person who raised their hand, John Gerard. Let me see if he has a question. Hi, John. Do you have a question? You're on mute. Do you want to unmute yourself? Well, we'll see if he comes back with a question. Okay, let's move along to these awesome panels, which I unfortunately recognize. Yeah.
So just real quickly on panel replacements, this is a real inexpensive upgrade for most of you. Again, it won't make sense to do a panel upgrade if you have knob and tube wiring in the house. You can't just upgrade the panel and hope that the knob and tube issue solves itself. But for customers that have newer what we call NM or Romex wiring, these panels right here are discontinued. So this is a Federal Pacific panel, and the reason that we don't that we have to remedy this solution is because this company went out of business, and these breakers are known to fail in the on position, and which means you can get an overcurrent situation or an overvoltage situation to a device, a PC, a refrigerator, a TV, and this circuit breaker does not do what it's supposed to do. This company was sued litigiously for many, many years until they went out of business, and the lawsuits all stem from house fires because of these circuit breakers right here. So we always recommend that these have to go. This is a Zinsco panel. This is the same situation. So I'd put these in here just in case you see these or recognize these. These are things that you want to have a licensed electrician come and take a look at. So these three right here are examples of manufacturers that are no longer in business, and they had a substandard product that does not need to be powering your home. The other reason that we would want to do a panel replacement is because moisture has entered the housing. So right here you see terminal blocks and circuit breakers that have obviously corrosion. This drastically reduces the effectiveness and the efficiency of the electrical panel and the circuit breaker. And so this is and our circuit breakers are designed to protect you, the homeowner. And so when they are in this state of affairs, they are not doing what we want them to do for you. This is another good example of corrosion. These are things that you cannot see unless you remove this cover in the electrical panel. And for those of you that are scared of electricity, do not remove this cover ever without an electrician with you, just because everything in here is powered and can shock you. So here's another good example of water damage. This is a really bad example, but anytime you see corrosion on your electrical panel on what we call the can, these are items that need to be addressed. And this is when you know that the moisture is going to start causing you problems in your panel. And then lastly, we want to replace panels when the bus bar is subject to damage or is for some reason has physical damage. So what you see here is your circuit breaker that actually attaches to the bus bar. Here's the bus bar right here. This is what we call phase A, or phase B, and this is what we call phase A. So they clip in. When a circuit breaker fails, we get an immense amount of heat right here in this area. And it actually is going to, over time, damage. So when you have heat, you obviously, all these metal parts start expanding and contracting based on the outdoor weather. And you see this more outdoors than you do indoors. But you can see that the heat is starting to cause a discoloration right here on the back part of, this is an isolation platform for the bus bar. So this is keeping the can itself from being energized. But that is a great indicator that we have a problem with the bus bar here. And so these are things that when we're looking for the quality of the things that are designed to protect you, these are things we do not want to see. So I wanted to show you these pictures so that you can go to your house and take a look around and see if you see any damage or you see any old panels and obviously if you have a manufacturer's name, you can Google that. It's real easy, and it'll tell you if they're still in business or not. And there'll be plenty of information for your manufacturer, whether they're still in business or not, and if they're still safe. Or you can call a licensed electrician or call Staley. So a panel replacement in a normal situation would take less than a day, maybe a day. It is not effective to just replace your panel and not address any wiring issues in your home. We believe at Staley that your panel should be inspected once a year for the damages that I just mentioned. Certainly, we don't advise scheduling a service call for an inspection, but as you have electricians in your home doing work, you should always ask them every single time, will you please inspect my panel and let me know if you see anything that needs to be addressed? A lot of electricians in our industry are in a hurry and they've got to get somewhere else when they get done with you. And so they are not thinking, we train our guys to think this way, but not every contractor's thinking this way. And so we want to make sure that you as the homeowner ask the question, will you please inspect my panel? And make sure they do it. As the customer, you deserve to know as much about your home as you want to know, and you should be able to ask as many questions as you want to ask about your home. I know that's sometimes uncomfortable for people, but it is something that we hold very near and dear to our heart. We want you to be as educated as you want to be about your home. Any questions there?
Not so far. Not so
Okay.
far.
Nathan,
I'll jump in if any come in.
You want to run with the generators? You're on mute.
I think we both tag team it. When we talk about generators in historic homes, one thing that we must have natural gas. Propane will work as well, but most for your district must have natural gas. When installing a new generator, we've talked about the panel upgrades. You must have the outside electrical service, which is supplying the power to your home. It has to be up to date when you install a new generator, just for inspections and safety concerns. A lot of times when we licensed electrician takes a look at this to give you the price or discuss it with you, that's something that you need to make sure and ask, hey, are we going to address the issue of the age or what needs to be brought up to code when we put that generator in? We strongly consider looking at the footprint. So when we're looking at a historical home, we're concerned about how the home looks. So you don't want to really just put a generator out in the front yard to make sure you see it. So we're trying to look at where we're going to put it and the size of it. In an easy way to explain it, you need to really think it's going to take up at least 2 spaces of what your air conditioner takes. You're going to eat up somewhere around a 3 foot by 5 foot section, or you're going to, for a smaller one, it would take up a lot less area. So you're looking there on these pictures. You can see the one on the left. You've got the small, that generator there. That's kind of towards the front of the home, but you're able to hide that with shrubbery and other types of vegetation. You can see the second picture there. There's an air conditioner right beside it. So if you look at its size comparison, it's about twice as wide as a air conditioner, as you can see there. Placement is a big issue with cost. You want to keep it as close as possible to where the gas enters the home. If the meter's there or not, you want to make sure you try to get to that one location, because you don't want it out front yard. And a lot of your gas meters are out front. You don't want to put it directly out in front of your yard where it's an eyesore. So you want to make sure when you talk to a contractor about putting a generator on a historic home, the placement of it is a large, especially to you, area that you need to address. There's actually a lot of questions we can go over on generators, how to place it. Does anyone have any questions on that? The benefits of having a generator, how they work.
Well, I guess really it's the questions that's come up for us is size. How do you know what scale is appropriate? Is it dependent upon how much energy you need, or is that how do you make that decision?
It's going to be curtailed around the customer, what their needs are in an emergency situation when they know they're going to be without power for a large period of time. That's where we get the platform of how big that generator is going to be. So let's say a lot of homes are running use 14 to 20 kW generator, which you can see on the right hand side. That is the footprint of a 14 to 20 kW generator. That's when you're wanting to run a large portion of your home, or your whole home. Let's just call it that way, depending on your square footage. If you're looking for just certain circuits that you need, especially if you've got to work, say I'm trying to keep my office going, refrigerator, and just trying to be able to stay on life support, there are smaller units. We can go down to 12 kW, 10, and so forth down. There are a smaller footprint. But you
So
still
I'll just jump in then. Do you base it on the square footage of a house? So if you have a 2,000 square foot house, typically you would need the smaller size, or is that what dictates it? Or is it really just what your needs are for your electrical needs? Can you give a guesstimate about the cost? So if you have a 2,000 square foot house, typically it would cost X amount to put in a system. If it's 3,000, 4,000 square feet, is it correlated with the scale of your property?
It does. It is correlated to that scale. Yes, as a large factor that goes into sizing it. It is a very large factor. When you're trying to say goes into a price, let's just say an average price between $8,500 and $9,500 for install of a 14 to 20 kW generator, depending, like you said, where you place it. That's really where you're usually at in that ballpark for that, and it all depends on, you've got to factor in things like plumbing. I've got to get natural gas to it, so that is what curtails I guess you say your pricing on it. But that's about the average installs between $8,500 and $9,500 for a 20 kW install.
Patricia, I think too, you ask a great question. It's based on square footage. But according to the National Electrical Code, we have to estimate the usage of the home. And then, so we put in all this, we put in the square footage, we put in the number of electric appliances, the number of gas appliances, and all the usage and the demand that the home is going to create. And we size the generator according to that. And then we have the option of what we call load shedding. So we can actually shed loads to get the generator size down to an appropriate level. If we actually used, and so gas heat versus electric heat makes a huge difference in the size of the generator. The more gas appliances you have in your home, the smaller generator that you're going to need to power your home. And so we have to take all that into account. The process is we come to your house, we walk through your appliances with you, we understand, do you want a whole home generator so that you don't have to do anything when the power goes out? Or do you, as Nathan said, do you want your refrigerator and a few items to work just to get you by for a few days in an ice storm? And so we can scale it to fit your needs and your budget.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That was one of the questions that came in. Someone texted to me, so thank you.
Yes. And truly, when you call a generator installation company, the things you need to know before they get there are your ideal placement, where you would like to set the generator, and what parts of your home do you want to have powered. Now, if you say, I want this half powered and then I don't want this half powered, it's actually cheaper just to power the whole house than us to go in and try to figure out which circuits go where and how to do that. But if you just need minimal, say 6 circuits or 8 circuits, we can make that happen on a budget install. If you want the whole home, the prices that Nathan gave, and then we also have what we call liquid cooled units, which get into the $20,000, $30,000 installations for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 square foot homes that have an enormous demand. And so it's really customizable for the customer's needs.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. We're good on.
Well, I was gonna say, and one thing is do we have any questions about maintenance or anything or upkeep of a generator? That is also a factor that a lot of people don't ask that question. Is you need someone to make sure when you think about this, you want someone like a licensed contractor to come by and take a look at it every year, make sure that the fluids and everything is working in a proper way. It's kind of one of those things. Sometimes they sit there and they're forgotten about until they don't work. So when you talk to anyone about a generator, make sure you see what kind of plan they have to keep it maintenance yearly.
Okay. The next discussion is 2-prong versus 3-prong outlets. And in any home older than 30, 40 years old, we have 2-prong outlets that we deal with. And I would imagine a lot of you guys have either dealt with this or need to deal with it. Let's just briefly go through what this means if you have 2-prong outlets in your home. There is no ground present. That ground wire is designed to protect you from overcurrent, over amperage situations.
I'm going to follow with one last question about the generators. What is an average lifespan for a generator? If you're maintaining it, if you're having it inspected every year, how long can you expect your generator to last?
That's a great question. I would tell you that we have replaced generators that are 10 years old. We've replaced generators that are 20 years old. And so I would say that if you get 15 to 20 years out of your generator, you have done extremely well. And this also, the manufacturer of the generator is where this comes into play. It's no different than a car or a house. You're getting a product that is either made very cheaply to have a price point at a certain level where the majority of the people will buy it, and then you have very sophisticatedly engineered equipment that's going to cost a little more, but it's going to last a lot longer. And so no different than any purchase that you make, you need to make sure that you are pleased with the manufacturer of the generator as well as the company that installs it and that does your maintenance. Again, just like any purchase that we make today, there's a cost versus quality transaction that we do in our head, and generators are no different. There are what I would consider subpar generators that are not made to last beyond the warranty time period. And then there's generators that are really made to last in some really nasty weather and really tough conditions, and their parts and pieces that they use to assemble them are superior to the cheaper parts. And cars are this way as well. So there's some research that needs to be done. You certainly want to look at multiple different manufacturers when you're looking at this, and read reviews online and make sure that you're comfortable with what you're buying, just like you would a car.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep. So on the 2-prong outlets, there is no ground present, which means you have very little protection in an over voltage. You still have a wire there that's taking current back to the electrical panel, but the ground wire is actually an additional wire that does that in an over voltage situation. We're also the grounding, what we call an equipment grounding conductor, which is the ground wire in layman's terms, is designed to protect your appliances, and it's designed to protect you, the end user that's actually touching the appliance and plugging things into the device. On a 3-prong outlet, you may or may not have a ground present. We have a lot of older homes that our homeowners have taken it upon themselves to take the 2-prong out and put the 3-prong in, and they did not address the need to actually have a ground in the box. And so all they did was switch outlets. And so you still have the same problem, but it looks nice and it looks like it's current, but it's not. And so that's something, as you have contractors in your house working on something else, make sure they check this for you. If you have questions, you need to know, is there a ground present or not? That is an inspector in terms of a sale, he's going to check 50 to 60% of the outlets in the home to see if that ground wire is present. If the equipment grounding conductor is present, then you do have more protection with a 3-prong outlet. So here's, obviously, this is a little elementary, but over here we have, this is a 15 amp 3-prong outlet. This is a 20 amp 3-prong outlet. This is a 15 amp 2-prong and then a 20 amp 2-prong. So that's what they look like. And really the difference is your ground wire plugs in right here. You have 3 options for remedy in this situation. Number 1, by far the most expensive, but the best, is you install a ground wire to every location. Again, we talked about knob and tube rewiring and the expense that goes into that. This expense is less than knob and tube rewiring, but it's pretty close because we're going to every device with a wire. When we do this type of remedy, we're doing it for refrigerators. We're doing it for items where we can just do it to one outlet because we're trying to protect one device in the home, not the entire circuit. And so this is not a great solution for the entire house because it is so expensive to do. But it is a good solution if the stars align from a geography perspective, from the electrical panel to the device. Can we get a ground wire there relatively inexpensively? And that is by far the best way to protect yourself. The second option we have is we can find the first device on any circuit and we can install a GFCI outlet. That's called a ground fault circuit interrupter. It's an outlet that you probably have in your bathrooms. It's got the test and reset button on there. If we can find the first device on a circuit, we can install a GFCI outlet on that circuit and it will protect all the devices downline. Again, this has to be wired appropriately. There's a lot of GFCIs that we find that were designed to do this, but whoever installed them incorrectly, and the only protection that homeowner has is at that device. He doesn't have it downline, even though he or she may think he does. Again, this is the second most expensive solution because we have to find the first device, and that's just difficult to do in a historic home. It is possible, and so there's a lot of times where we do find that first device on the circuit and we can protect the entire circuit with a GFCI outlet. This also creates a little bit of confusion for our homeowners because if excuse me, if let's say for instance a circuit stops working, you have to remember where that GFCI is. That's the head of that circuit, and then you have to go reset that GFCI. It's not in your breaker box, so it could be in a cabinet, it could be in a closet, and this solution, it causes some confusion for our homeowners because they may not remember where that GFCI outlet is that actually will reset that circuit for them. So there's just food for thought. If you decide to go this route with your contractor, you need to make sure that either he or she draws a map for you so that you have a way to remedy a tripped GFCI relatively quickly. Please excuse my sensitive mouse. I'm jumping all over the place. Lastly, the third option, we can install a GFCI circuit breaker on each circuit. This is the least expensive of all options because we don't have to find the head device on a circuit. We can go straight to the electrical panel and remedy the entire solution in the electrical panel. These breakers are relatively expensive compared to standard breakers, and they do trip more often. They are extremely sensitive to any type of ground fault current, and so they will trip more often, and it's inconvenient. Patricia, you said all your panels were outside, and so, and you may have to go outside in the middle of the night to reset a breaker, but you are protected with your 3-prong outlets, and you can replace all those 3 prongs, all the 2 prongs to 3 prongs with these circuit breakers. And they also do not have a standard lifespan of a regular circuit breaker. Because of their sensitivity and their nature, they don't last as long as what we see a standard circuit breaker lasting. This is really key, and this does not happen very often. And inspectors would look for this with options 2 and 3. So if you go with a GFCI breaker or an outlet, any protected outlet on that circuit must be labeled GFCI protected, no ground present. That means I've got a 3-prong outlet in the wall. There's no ground wire there, but that ground fault circuit interrupter is protecting this outlet. And this tells the homeowner or whoever's plugging in, there's no ground present, but there is a GFCI protection on this particular device. That's required by the NEC. Nobody wants these labels on their home and their outlets, and so a lot of people don't do it, but it is a requirement. And I don't really even see inspectors notating this, but if everybody did this, then you would know if you were protected or not. So just so you know, that label is required, and certainly if our customers tell us not to do it, we don't do it. We suggest it, but it's your home, and if you don't want a sticker or a label on your outlet, we certainly understand. Okay. Shelly and Patricia, any questions? We're getting ready to wrap up here.
Not for my end.
Okay.
Not from my end either. Every now and then we have a question that pops up just because the YouTube is about 10 or 20 seconds behind. So that if something comes up, we'll just interrupt again, or we'll break it back to you. Sounds good. Sounds good. So this is something that we just wanted to touch base on the different types of outlets in your home. We get tons of questions on 2-prong versus 3-prong outlets. We answer a lot of these questions every week, and so we just want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to ask away today. Our last piece is what you need to know having a beautiful home in Little Rock, Arkansas, or potentially buying a beautiful home in Little Rock, Arkansas in the Quapaw district. The things that we think you should know about contractors before they step foot in your door. Anybody that quotes an exact amount on knob and tube is guessing. They do not know exactly what it's going to cost them to do the job. So if they're giving you a hard quote, they're either guessing really, really high, or they're not sure, and they're just putting a number out there. We try to go with the budget approach to make sure that there's communication throughout the process. And if we just don't know what we don't know. And the things that we don't know are behind those walls, behind that lath and plaster, behind that sheetrock, behind that stucco or brick. And that's really where the budgetary pricing protects us as a contractor, and it protects you as a homeowner, so that we can remedy the situation as we move through the project, as opposed to over promising and under delivering by setting a fixed price. One thing we do is we set budgets in a worst case scenario, so that typically what the worst case is going to be, and then we end up billing less than that because not everything's worst case. And so we just try to eliminate any shock on the front end. And so anybody that just comes out and throws a number out there for knob and tube, I would be concerned about that. If they're not doing their homework on the actual house, it is time consuming. And again, like I said, a mistake in a historic home is 4 times as expensive as a mistake in a standard home. And so it's, make sure that your contractor has the knowledge of knob and tube
that you get references, that they've done work in the historic district, that they understand how to work with and cut the walls in the proper places to make sure these remedies go extremely well. Your home is the most difficult environment for electricians, plumbers, and HVAC techs. And I say that not to discourage you, but just to let you know that your investment in your home is, you have to be patient with us and people like us, because we're trying the very, very best to take as good a care of your home as we possibly can. The heights of your ceilings make fishing walls very difficult. There's fire breaks in each and every one of your walls. So it may look like we've got a 10-foot wall, or in some instances I've seen 11 feet walls, but halfway or maybe even two fire breaks, you'll have a runner between the studs. And so when we're trying to fish that wall, that fire break keeps us from getting the wire where we need to get it, which is very painstakingly cumbersome to get the wire where we need to get it. So I would ask for all of our industry that you be patient with the contractors in your home and let them take their time and be very, very careful. The moldings, the crown moldings that are in your house, I mean, everything is so unique and so special that it just takes, it's an art form to get wires where we need to get them. And unfortunately for you, it takes longer than it would take us in other homes, but it's part of owning these beautiful properties. The wall construction is completely different in your neighborhood than it is anywhere else in town. And I mean, there is nowhere in town that has the type of wall construction that you guys have, as you know. And so again, make sure that your contractors understand that and that they know what they're doing. Obviously utilize each other for references. Somebody that does a great job for one of you, she's going to continue to do a great job in your neighborhood, and you want to keep that person busy because they care about the homes, and they're in it to be a craftsman at what they do. You know, we consider ourselves skilled tradesmen, craftsmen, mechanics, and we're very passionate about what we do. And so when you find somebody that's good, make sure all of your neighbors know about that person, because we want those contractors to stay in business for as long as possible and to be happy about working in the Quapaw district. A lot of contractors won't, as you know, and I know you've experienced it, they won't return your calls and they won't show up for meetings because they're scared of your homes. And obviously if they are, they don't need to be in the neighborhood. Contractors that return your calls in a timely manner and deliver on their promises, they're worth investing in. In our business, this is few and far between. And if you find contractors that absolutely are Johnny on the spot, they return every phone call, they show up when they say they're going to show up, their work will reflect that attitude. The ones that don't call you back, the ones that don't show up when they say they're going to, they give us all a bad name. And, you know, if they may have the cheapest price, but they're not in it for you, and they're not in it for the service, and they're not setting the standard for all of us to be better. And so those are good what I call key indicators of what kind of work you're going to get. So if they can't return phone calls and they can't show up when they're supposed to, that's a good indication of the type of work that you're going to get in your home. And then obviously and I don't suggest this to everybody, but I'm going to suggest it to you guys. When you're asking for references for plumbers, HVAC, electricians, roofers, painters, for your specific instance, you need to be specific about the type of project that you have. I wouldn't suggest this to everybody, but a generator in a historic home is different than a generator anywhere else in town. A knob and tube remedy is different in your neighborhood than it is anywhere else in town. And so you're really looking for somebody that has the expertise in that type of project. I'm an electrical contractor. Nathan's an electrical contractor. There are jobs that we won't do because we don't think we're the best at them. And we will be honest and tell you that. And I would just encourage you to make sure, because of the types of structures that we're dealing with, that you make sure not just, don't give me just a good electrician, give me a good electrician that knows knob and tube and knows his way around lath and plaster, because that specificity is really crucial for your type of homes. And so I would just encourage you guys to obviously network and share those really good contractors with each other. And it really does matter from the types of projects that you're doing, and not just a good electrician he cannot be a good electrician at everything, and a good plumber can't be a good plumber at everything. And so be specific about the type of projects that you're looking at. Let's see what else. So that's it. Certainly we'll take any questions that you guys have. I want to just say thank you guys for your interest in our city, for keeping it as beautiful as you guys do, and for keeping that special area of town just a wonderful place for us to work, to drive through, to take our kids to. And we're just grateful that you guys allowed us the opportunity to visit with you tonight.
Well, we just want to say thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen with just a couple of closing comments. And I'm telling you what, some of the scenarios you all talked about, I am familiar with. I'm going to pull this one slide back up where we started earlier, because this panel over here is at the William Woodruff House, and it certainly would not be up to snuff today. You know, that's a 7,000 square foot building. And one of the folks who was visiting with us at the house over the weekend, Kelly Reap, took that, and it's quite, I don't want to say it's entertaining, but it is kind of in a way, isn't it? So anyway, thank you both very much. I want to just remind everybody that our next preservation conversation is coming up on December 10th. It's Tony Johnson to talk about historic rehabilitation tax credits, which fits in very well this discussion of all of the electrical work you might need at your house, as well as just repair work associated with accessing some of that antiquated materials that you might need to upgrade. So I just want to remind you of that. We're also going to do another tax credit talk at the beginning of next year, because we're going to push to get the tax credit cap, overall state cap, raised, because at this point the allocation for 2020 has actually already been fully consumed, and now we're backing up to get to the next allocation. So the tax credit is in high demand. It's being very well utilized for awesome projects, but we've demonstrated that we need more of those funds, which is a great revitalization tool. Just a quick update on our latest crisis save. The Murphy Jeffries building was on the docket for the city board meeting on Tuesday. I went with the Jeffries sisters and a gentleman who's interested in purchasing the property and rehabilitating it. So we anticipate that that item is going to be on next week's city board of director agenda actual meeting. And that is to get it off of the demolition list. So we are making progress, you all. Thank you for everyone who reached out, signed the petition, and I am, as I've said, cautiously optimistic. We're not out of the woods yet, but you know what? We are making progress, and we very likely may have saved this very important historic building. So thank you, everyone who put some effort into that. And that'll wrap us up for tonight. So again, thank you, Brent. Thank you very much, Nathan. It was great to talk with you. A little bit scary, to be perfectly honest with you. My house is 1958, and guess what? We do have those ungrounded plugs, and we do something naughty. I shouldn't tell you, but we use one of those adapters if we have a grounded wire that we need to plug in. So I know you guys are like, oh Lordy, don't go to her house. She's gonna have a bonfire. But it's what we do. It's what we do. I hate to admit it. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. And if you have questions, send us an email. Go to our website. If you're not a member, make sure you join. Call it a night. Thanks everybody. Thank you, Shelley. Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Nathan. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.